I'm pleased and honored to have been approached to talk to you regarding our pollinator strip. So here I am on my farm in southeast Saskatchewan, just minding my own business when I was approached by Avena Foods from Rowan, Saskatchewan. Avena Foods is the company that I sell my gluten-free oats to. They said, we have a company once upon a farm that we supply oats to, and they want to do a 2-year living lab field trial on a 5-acre pollinator strip. Once Upon a Farm is a company based in California. They make organic snacks focused on children's nutrition. They also wanted to do a pollinator strip on an adjacent field of intercrop peas and oats for testing comparisons. So I said, why not? What can it hurt? Regenerative agriculture focuses on enhancing soil health, biodiversity, and ecosystem resilience by minimizing soil disturbance, maximizing biodiversity, and maximizing living roots. This is not a cutting-edge practice for an organic farmer. We are checking all or most of these boxes by the farming practices that we already follow. Collective Impact is the company that basically did all the legwork, including soil tests, water infiltration tests, and plant density tests on the pollinator strip and compared the results with the pea oat intercrop. They also did insect counts, particularly bee counts, and noted the other forms of wildlife that took advantage of this project. So there's about 20 or so slides that we're going to go through quickly due to time management. Once again, Matthew will have these posted on Lethbridge County's YouTube channel as well as their website.
These slides that we'll go through quickly, you'll see them, and it's already, we just included them to show you all the testing that they did for these things. So you'll see them fly by, but you can go back later to look at them and you'll get to see what they all tested for.
Rough Bark Acres is an organic farm of approximately 3,200 acres. Our crop rotation is a 3-year rotation. So year 1, we grow gluten-free oats. Year 2, we grow a pea oat intercrop. Year 3 is our plow down year. And then we repeat the rotation. So for those of you that don't know what a plow down is, it's a method that organic farmers use to incorporate green manure back into the soil for nutrients for the next crops and improve soil health. Some examples of a green manure or cover crop can be yellow clover, red clover, rye, peas, oats, or any multi-cover crop blends. When we terminate our crop, we use a crimper. This crimper is 40 feet wide. The blades on the rollers lay the plant flat on the ground and crimps or cuts the circulation off to the plant. This practice helps with weed control, helps with wind erosion, and helps to conserve moisture. We do eventually go in with the disc and incorporate the plant matter into the soil to improve soil health. The Rough Bark Acres was kind of suited for this project with our pea oat intercrop. This was a brand new practice for our farm in 2024. We found that peas alone were not a great competitor with weeds, and in some years, heavy rains or strong winds would lay the plants down on the ground, making it difficult to swap. The pea oat intercrop provides more ground cover for weed control, and the oats provide stems for the peas to climb up and latch onto. Once again, we're going to be firing through some of these slides for time management. Soil tests were completed prior to seeding on the area where the pollinator strip was to be planted and where the intercrop of peas and oats were to be seeded. The pollinator seed blend was developed by a plant scientist at the University of Manitoba. The recipe contains 11 different seeds that include annuals and perennials. The idea behind the different seeds or plants is that each plant when established, has a different life cycle. The plants would bloom at different times, thus providing a longer duration for insects to pollinate. The pollinator blend was seeded on May 18, 2024, at the suggested rate of 22 pounds per acre. The peas and oat intercrop were also seeded that day. The following day, we underseeded yellow blossom sweet clover with the peas and oats. The clover is a perennial that will get established in 2025 and provide nutrients for the soil when it is terminated in the summertime. So here are a few images of the plants getting established in their blooming stages. So you can see some buckwheat, alfalfa, Persian clover, cane, a bad weed, thistle, buckwheat, and a sunflower. These last slides is a great example of the different flowering times for each plant species. When the phacelia was in flower, the sunflower was not yet open. As the phacelia matured, the sunflower started to open up. Here are the results of the water filtration tests that were done on June 26th. The purpose of this test is to determine the time it takes for 1 inch of water to infiltrate the soil. On August 26th, the tests were done again. As you can see, in both tests, the water filtrated quicker in the pollinator strip. This shows the different plants and their different root types. The water infiltration may benefit from all the different root types as well as pulling nutrients from the different areas of the soil. Normalized Difference Vegetation Index, or NDVI, was done throughout the project to compare plant stand density of the pollinator strip and the pea-oat intercrop. The dark green shows higher biomass compared to the rest of the field, and the red shows the low biomass compared to the rest of the field.
The things in that blue circle that you'll always see, that's the pollinator strip. It goes a little, it's like, it looks like it's not full because it doesn't go the entire width of the field.
We just basically seeded 2.5 acres up the field and then turned around and did 2.5 acres back. So it didn't go the whole length of the field. Bee counts were performed on July 26th, August 26th, and October 18th. On July 26th, there was no bee activity in either the pollinator strip or the pea-oat intercrop. The peas and oats had finished flowering, and the pollinator strip did not have many plants flowering at that time. We assumed that the bees had moved on to a nearby canola field that was flowering. On August 26th, there was bee activity in the pollinator strip. The sunflowers were the main flowers attracting the bees. The peas and oats had been swathed, so counts were not taken in there. October 18th, there was no bee activity as it was a windy day. The crimson clover was still in flower that could attract the bees. The intercrop had been harvested, so no bee activity was present. So Regan from Collective Impact has been our main contact with regards to the testing and data reports. So Regan lives about 4 hours away from our farm. Some of these results do not show much activity in the days that she traveled down. So Regan could not always pick the perfect day to collect her data. Bees are not the only insects that take advantage of the flowering pollinator strips. So here we have a butterfly, there's a moth, there's a hoverfly, and there is a bumblebee. This would have been taken in the fall after harvest. The sunflowers and the other annuals have dried down and have produced seeds for the birds to eat throughout the winter. This stand will also provide shelter for the many birds and anything else that wants to take advantage of it. So fast forward to 2025. The perennials have started to get established. These photos show the different perennials present in the pollinator strip. So there's red clover leaves. There's a chicory towering above, sainfoin, alsike, and alfalfa. Soil tests were again completed in the pollinator strip and the yellow clover. Water filtration tests were again performed throughout the growing season. On May 9th, it took 42 minutes for 1 inch of water to filtrate. The ground was very dry and hard, which impacted filtration. On July 8th, another filtration test was performed on the pollinator strip and the terminated yellow clover. As you can see, the water filtrated quicker in the pollinator strip than the yellow clover. We did receive some rain, which could have impacted the filtration times. On August 13th, another filtration test was performed. So throughout all of these filtration tests, the 1 inch of water filtrated the soil faster in the pollinator strip compared to the clover. From these images, you can see the different root types that are present in the pollinator strip. There's the sainfoin, meadow fescue, there's red clover, alfalfa, and there is the yellow clover root.
So the yellow clover root, you can just see how it's not as variety as the other ones to allow that water to come through once the crop is done.
So this could possibly be a contributing factor in the faster water filtration in the pollinator strip compared to the single root system in the yellow clover. NDVI was performed throughout the growing season. This image shows the dark green in the pollinator strip due to its high biomass from early growth. The June 9th image shows that the pollinator strip has greened up much sooner than the yellow clover. The August 1st image shows the pollinator strip stands out because the yellow clover had been terminated at that point. The June 29th and July 19th images are not as green due to the surrounding yellow clover in its growing stages with the same amount of biomass. Excuse me. The September 25th and October 7th images show that the plants are starting to dry down and the fall frosts have taken an impact. So this is a drone image of the crimped yellow clover, and then there's the pollinator strip still standing.
It's a great picture to show that those two the diversity of it in that pollinator strip. It's a really solid picture that she's got of that.
And this image shows the yellow clover that has now been disked into the soil. And then there is the standing pollinator strip. Bee counts were done on July 8th and August 19th. It's evident that the bees were taking advantage of the pollinator strip. October 3rd, bee counts were non-existent due to the cool, wet weather. Not only do insects take advantage of the pollinator strip, we have observed where deer and moose have bedded down in the strip for protection, as well as where they have feasted on the different plants available. So here we have a cow with a set of twins, and then a couple of bull moose. The pollinator strip would also provide food and possible nesting grounds for the different species of birds. So there's the red-winged blackbird. The fun part of the day for me is walking into the pollinator strip and seeing the different animals and insects taking advantage of the pollinator strip. The pollinator strip improves soil health, but it also provides food and shelter for the many different species that we share this great planet with. So pictures of a couple mule deer, and then yes, the endangered burrowing owl that we saw.
That burying owl picture got us a lot of traction and a lot of help that promote this pollinator strip for Avena and Once Upon a Farm.
The big question for me is, would I do it again? Absolutely, I will. In 2025, I incorporated 3 more pollinator strips on our farm. On a side note, pollinator strips don't necessarily need to be a 5-acre strip. It can be any size from a small patch in your garden to a 5-acre patch like I have in my fields. We are considering seeding our pollinator strips where our buffer strips are. For those of you that don't know what a buffer strip is, if an organic field touches a non-organic field, we must leave a 30-foot strip between our organic field and the non-organic field in order to maintain our certification. The buffer strip must be harvested separate. It must be stored and accounted for in a separate bin. And it must be sold as non-organic, or if you have livestock, you can feed it to your cows or horses or whatever you have. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to this presentation. I hope that you found it as interesting as we have with the results today. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Shannon. I love the photos there. The burrowing owl and the moose is pretty cool. That's pretty cool to see. The just out of curiosity, was that burrowing owl? Did it show up after, or was it there before? You guys know?
That was the first time I ever spotted it. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing he just moved in.
Because
that's cool.
their son's very cautious when they're seeding and harvesting. We're always looking for some kind of nest in the field, and we'll stake it around. So I think we're guessing he just showed up. So now that everyone's claiming the pollinator strip as being the attractor for it.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. Our next speaker, Sean Smukler, is an associate professor, chair of agriculture and environment, and director of the Center for Sustainable Food Systems in the Faculty of Land and Food Systems at the University of British Columbia. Sean will be presenting on setting aside ground to regenerate soil health in annual cropping systems, lessons from Southwest BC. Good morning, Sean, and welcome.
Great, thank you, Matthew. Kudos to you. These 2 presentations, I think, fit really nicely together. I wasn't sure, but they really do dovetail off each other. I have lots of questions for the first speakers. But yeah, thanks for having me, Matthew. Before I jump in, I just want to let everyone know that I'm joining you from my office on the UBC campus here in Vancouver, and I'm extremely privileged to be here on the unceded territory of the Musqueam people. As the director for the Center for Sustainable Food Systems, I get the honor of managing a 60-acre organic certified teaching, research and community engagement farm on the south end of campus. For the next 30 or so minutes, I'm going to try to address 3 questions. So these are in the context of the work that we've done over the last 10 or so years as a team over a number of different projects. And I'm hoping that the answers to these questions, while contextualized in our very specific situation in the Fraser River Delta, will be helpful in your own situations. And I'm going to try as best as possible to contextualize the weather, the cropping systems, and the soil so that you can get a sense of how that would relate to your own systems. So the first question is, why set aside ground and plant perennial grasses in the Fraser River Delta? The second question is, what are the short and long-term soil health benefits from a 3 to 4 year grassland set aside? And importantly, can we improve this system so that we can get more out of this set aside approach? So I do want to start, or before I jump in any further, is to really acknowledge all of the people that were essential in the work that I'm going to present here. I had a small army of undergraduate and graduate students helping me with this. They do all the heavy and more fun lifting. And certainly we had numerous farmers and industry associations that were involved in this. And in particular, the Delta Farmland and Wildlife Trust, which I'll talk about quite a bit more in a minute. And then a whole slew of funders. And in particular, now we're engaged in a project that I'll share more about at the end here with the funding from the Organic Science Cluster program. So the first question, why would we want to set aside ground and plant perennial grasses in the Fraser River Delta? So yeah, I know not all of you are maybe familiar with BC, so just to situate you quickly, we are just 1%, agriculture is just 1% of the province's total land base. We have a very diverse mix of crops though. So while the vast majority is forage, we have a wide range of fruit, vegetable, cereal crops, legumes and oilseeds being grown. Then to bring you to where our research has been done, we're working in the Fraser River Delta, right at the mouth of the Fraser River, adjacent to the coast, and just 30, well, it can be as long as an hour drive from Vancouver, depending on the traffic, but it's very close to urban center. So the Fraser River Delta is incredibly productive. It's on alluvial soils of the Fraser River Delta. But this low-lying area, yeah, it's conducive to very intensive, high-value production systems. The land is extremely expensive, given its proximity to Vancouver, one of the most expensive cities in the world. So we're growing vegetables, forage, livestock, and some berries, blueberries in particular, in the region. So these soils are fine textured. They're very poorly drained. A lot of our farmers have tile drainage, and it's essential that we have dikes to hold back the neighboring ocean. So some of the key pressures that our producers are facing are compaction, which is a really big one. Nutrient loss. We've had extensive flooding. You might have seen it in the news, that not this particular area, but other areas in the Fraser River or in the Fraser Valley were inundated quite significantly. In this area in particular, we face real challenges with salinity and shifting precipitation patterns that make it really challenging to get in on our soils without damaging them on the shoulder season. So the precipitation in the spring really limiting when we can get on our fields without causing compaction. And then the fall precipitation really challenging the farmers, and in some cases in a way that's catastrophic, where they can't get their crops out of their field. So some of the impacts that we're seeing from this intensive production is real decline in soil health and ultimately declining soil yields. One particularly, I think, maybe unique situation that the farmers in this region are facing is the large quantity of migrating waterfowl that come through this region every year. So we are on the Pacific Flyway, and millions of birds overwinter in our region, and it can cause quite a bit of damage to our cover crop fields and really cause some severe soil compaction. So this brings me to the Delta Farmland and Wildlife Trust. This organization was started in 1992. It's a consortium of farmers, environmentalists, university researchers, and people from the public who recognized that the challenges in Delta were really impacting agriculture, but also the wildlife. So this group of different organizations came together with funds from the airport expansion and developed a series of programs designed to not only enhance wildlife habitat, but also to improve agricultural production and sustainability. So they've got a number of different programs. Two of the programs that I'll be focused on right here is the grassland set-aside program and their cover crop program. So the grassland set-aside program basically incentivizes farmers to take land out of production for 3 to 4 years. The primary goal started as to really ensure that there was substantial wildlife habitat. So ideally creating habitat that would take the pressure off farmers being able to plant their cover crops over the winter and provide habitat for a wide range of organisms, some of the ones that we saw in the previous presentation. The secondary objective was to really help rebuild some of the degraded soil. So many of the farmers that we work with are taking fields that are showing signs of declining productivity and putting them in these set-asides, which in a region with such expensive rental and real estate values is a real trick. So the idea is that having these perennial grasses helps to build soil structure, improve soil biology, increases infiltration, as we saw in the previous presentation, and also increases water retention and pollination. And this pollination benefit is actually fairly new to the program, as a new grassland set-aside mix has been introduced. So the incentive is $500 per acre for up to 4 years. There's an additional $150 per acre if a pollinator mix is used. Usually the farms are already laser leveled, but if they're not, it's encouraged. These are typically planted in May through June, and the seeding rate has been determined largely by university researchers here at UBC over the decades. And the current mix, after many years of tweaking, now is mainly perennial grasses, orchard grass, tall fescue, timothy, chewing fescue, creeping fescue, but then a couple of leguminous species, red clover, alsik, and then sunflower. So this brings me to my second question. So what are the short and long-term soil health benefits to 3 to 4 year grassland set-asides? And just to note that this research is really focused on the soil health benefits. And just to be clear about what we're talking about when we say soil health, this is the definition that I really like. Soil health is the continued capacity of a soil to function as a vital living ecosystem that sustains plants, animals, and humans. So if we were to think about some of the set-aside benefits in terms of soil health after the set-aside has been put back into the ground has been put back into production. So these would include increased soil organic matter, soil structure, soil biology, the things that we saw in the set-aside itself that we hope would continue on over the long term. Ideally, the increased infiltration over the set-aside period would have reduced some of the salinity problems. And then the increased organic matter would have helped with water retention as well as infiltration. And then what's really interesting or of value to the producers that we work with is the potential to increase the available nitrogen following these set-asides. So we did a series of experiments that I'll just give you a snapshot of that we ran about 10 years ago. This in particular, this work that I'm going to show you was done by Khalil Walji, who was a master's student in my lab. But it really is based on some of the research that's been done around here in Canada and around the world that shows that these set-asides can actually fix substantial quantity of nitrogen through biological nitrogen fixation. So these studies around the world have shown that we can, in temperate regions, fix as much more than 250 pounds per acre, which could be a substantial benefit to producers in terms of their bottom line. So the study that Khalil did was in the Delta region. Basically, we had a paired study design where we had fields that were annual crop rotations without grassland set-asides, and then fields that were going into production right after 3 years of grassland set-aside. We did this for 2 years in a row. And what was really interesting is that we did see that nitrogen benefit. So when we look at, here I'm showing the available nitrogen in the nitrate in particular, in the 0 to 15 and 15 to 30 centimeter depths following the 3-year set-aside in the first year of production. And these soil tests are showing over the course of the season that the grassland set-aside had higher concentrations, higher stocks of nitrate. And then these bars with the stars are indicating a significant difference in the averages over the course of the season, illustrating that we on average had 12 pounds per acre more than the annual cropping rotation fields. But then in 2016, we saw the exact opposite. So this is what a master's student does not want to see, is totally confounding results. So in the subsequent year, we saw a reverse of this. So the grassland set-asides actually had less available nitrogen than the annual crop rotations. And then we used anion exchange resins. So these resins give us a cumulative picture of both nitrate and ammonium over the course of the season. So we have resins that we pull out 3 times during the season. And these confirm those results, that basically over the course of the season, in the first year, we saw a significantly greater amount of nitrate, but no difference in ammonium. Whereas in the second year, we had way more nitrate and ammonium in the fields that did not have a grassland set-aside. So this is a really interesting result, and looking at some details of this to try to figure out why we found this difference. So both fields were roughly the same amount of biomass when they were turned in. Interestingly, the fields in 2015 had a higher C to N ratio, which is kind of exactly the opposite of what we expected. And then the fields in 2016 had a higher amount of nitrogen, additional nitrogen in their biomass. So what was going on here? And what we came down to was basically a difference, a pretty extreme difference in the weather patterns of the 2 years. So in the first year, this gray bar showing the historic precipitation rates. And then in 2015, we saw unusually low precipitation in May and June, sort of that shoulder season when the grassland set-aside has been turned in, it's starting to decompose, basically dried out enough to really see the decomposition mobilize that nitrogen early on enough to see the benefit in that first production season. So relative to 2016, where our precipitation pattern was much more similar to the historic precipitation pattern. So while this might mean we wouldn't see that nitrogen benefit in the first year if we had typical precipitation patterns, it's entirely possible that we saw benefits later on, but we didn't measure in the subsequent years. What we do see is that we saw, based on the available nitrogen data and the weather data, we saw a confirmation, well, a correlation that helped us confirm this. Basically showed a strong negative correlation with our moisture levels. So this moves on to the second question, or second part of that second question. What are the long-term soil health benefits? And using a few indicators of soil health, a graduate's PhD student used some of the Delta Farmland and Wildlife Trust historic management data and some soils data that we collected to develop a really interesting study. So we looked at 19 farms across the Delta region, and on each of these farms, we set up plots depending on the different programs they were involved in. So we had, we chose some sites that were hedgerows to give us sort of a counterfactual to the production system. And then we had grassland set-asides that had also some years of cover cropping. And then we had fields that had only winter cover cropping. And then a bunch of fields, a bunch of plots that had no Delta Farmland and Wildlife Trust programs at all. So this, this heat map, so to speak, shows you since 1992 through 2016, the management that was in place. The purple showing the grassland set-asides, which are typically 4 years. In some cases, people were doing them for as little as 1 year. And then the fields that had winter cover crops. So I'm going to show you some results and walk through these carefully so that they're meaningful to you. So this is showing soil organic carbon. This is the concentration at 4 depths, 0 to 15, 15 to 30, 30 to 60, and 60 to 100. And in green, we're showing the hedgerow, which is that sort of undisturbed habitat. Then in purple, we've got the grassland set-aside with winter cover crops sporadically in between. The red is winter cover crops, and the white is no program. And what we did also was to look at how soil organic carbon differed, the results differed based on soil types. And we had 2 soil types out there. We had a silt loam and a silty clay loam. So what we did see was after the multiple years of these programs, that there was a significant difference between the winter cover crop and grassland set-aside combination with the non-program fields, and quite a substantial difference. We did not see any difference in terms of the pattern for the texture, and we did not see any difference once we got below the 0 to 15 centimeter layer. Putting a slightly different lens on this, we looked at the equivalent soil mass. So this is basically aggregating the bulk density and the depth, multiple depths, to give us a picture of the overall soil profile. And at the 0 to 30 centimeter, or 0.4 tons of soil mass, that significant difference between the grassland set-aside and the non-program crops is maintained. What we don't see is that maintained for the whole soil depth. So this is really showing us that this is affecting the surface soils and not further down. But then when we look at it in this, with this lens, we actually do see that the silty clay loam has a higher propensity to store carbon. And that carbon is really important because it helps with our soil water dynamics in a number of different ways. We looked at the available water holding capacity. And clearly in our hedgerow, our non-disturbed areas, we have a much higher water holding capacity than any of the production options. And we did not see a significant difference despite that additional carbon in water holding capacity. We did see that soil texture really does mediate that quite a bit. So there may be something going on with, although there was no interactions, there may be something going on between texture and the grassland set-asides. Another key indicator of soil health that we looked at was the workability threshold. So I told you that it's really important for the farmers to get on their ground early in the spring and be able to harvest late in the fall without damaging the soil. So this is giving us a sense of what that threshold will be in terms of the soil moisture. And really interesting, we do see that the increased soil organic matter is having a significant benefit for those grassland set-aside soils, but not the soils that have been winter cover cropped over time. And again, texture playing an important role. So some key takeaways in terms of the short term. So the plant available nitrogen outcomes are highly variable. We saw just a complete switch from year to year. This is likely depending on weather, timing, and the C/N ratio of the crops. And in the long term, we saw that the GLSA combined with cover crops increased soil organic carbon and had some benefits for water dynamics, but it was a mixed set of results. And so I'm going to refer to some work that was done by Blanco Concrete and their team down in the US. This was a 2022 meta-analysis looking at 77 cover crops and no cover crop fields. So again, a comparison. And we are interested in this meta-analysis because they identified some thresholds where biomass really determined whether or not in subsequent years you'd see an accumulation or a meaningful, a statistically significant accumulation of organic carbon in the soil. So what they identified was a set of thresholds. So anything less than a ton of biomass per hectare, they didn't see any improvement in organic matter. 2 to 6 tons of biomass, they saw minor improvement in soil organic carbon. And then greater than 6 tons of biomass per hectare, that's where they started to see really meaningful accrual of carbon in the soil. So that flags to us that we really have, maybe this isn't exactly the same thresholds for our system, but we likely have similar thresholds for biomass to see those real soil health benefits following the set-asides. So then the question comes, are there ways that we can improve the set-aside so that they do either accrue more carbon in the soil and or increase the amount of nitrogen being fixed? So a PhD student, a master's student in my lab worked on regional field trials where we looked at an alternative to the 3 to 4 year set-aside as a 1 year set-aside. And this has real advantage to farmers in the province, particularly in the southwest BC area where real estate's so expensive. Taking land out of production is extremely costly. So 1 year in grassland set-aside, comparing that to summer and winter, a summer cover crop followed by a winter cover crop. And then we looked at irrigated versus non-irrigated setups of this. And we did that in 4 different regions. So we planted the summer cover crop and the perennials in May. Then we turned those cover crops in the fall, and then planted another cover crop in over the winter. And then we compared that to 6 perennial crop mixes. So I just throw out there that we utilized a new resource in BC, a cover cropping guide that identifies various cover crops appropriate for the province. And what the potential benefits of those cover crops are. So we selected a few different mixes to look at. We looked at 6 different mixes, varying with faba beans, peas, oats, and this was followed by 1 cover crop mix during the winter, rye, pea, and clover for all the plots. And then we compared these to the grassland set-aside mixes that we've seen elsewhere and our own UBC farm mix. So yeah, we had 3 different mixes, and then we had an additional 3 mixes with added rate of clover, basically trying to bump up the legume. And the results were really interesting. We saw really, in some cases, the mixes were really impacted by the irrigation. In other cases, not so much. But what I'd like to point out here is the dotted lines. These are the lines that we identified were those thresholds from the Blanco-Conqui data. So this is indicating that anything above this is we're gonna see some sequestration, and anything below this, maybe we'll see some improvement in soil carbon, but below that, not at all. So all our these are our 1-year grassland set-aside mixes. They all got us almost to the 2nd threshold, but it's really the back-to-back cover cropping, the summer to winter cover cropping, that gets us well above that. And then to just point out that the summer cover crops did a really good job in some cases of getting low C/N ratios. So all of these cover crops, except for the oat faba mix, had C/N ratios that likely indicate enough nitrogen in it to provide nitrogen to the subsequent cover crop. So some key takeaways for this 3rd question: the total biomass for the summer and winter cover crops was more than double that we saw the grassland set aside. And the C/N ratios look really promising for the summer cover crops. So we've got a lot of work left to do. We're going to start some additional experiments next spring to try to hone what we're finding here. And yeah, hopefully figure out a way to both get an increase of soil organic matter, structure, all those key soil health benefits in a way that we can do it in just 1 year. So yeah, I'll stop here, open it up to questions, and then just throw out there that all of these studies and more are on our Sustainable Agricultural Landscapes website, but also there's a number of reports geared towards producers that are available on our BC Food website. Yeah, we'll stop there.
Awesome, thanks, Sean. That was some really good info there. Okay, we'll get into questions here. Got a few Q&A sheet already, so we'll take a look here. So anyone that has questions for Sean, just throw them in the Q&A right now, and I'll pull up some questions for Shannon while we wait here. So Shannon, if she's there, kick around. Oh, there we go. Hey, so one of the questions we got here is, what are the seeding rates of oats and peas in the intercrop that you use?
So that year in 2024, we did the peas we seeded at 3 bushels an acre, and then the oats at 2 bushels an acre. In 2025, we kind of did some trial runs. We did some fields at 4 bushels an acre, and let's see, 1.5 bushels of oats. The peas were 4, I guess. And then we did some at 3.5 bushels an acre, the peas, and 2 bushels an acre of oats, and 3 and 2 again. So we wanted to find out which one was the best rates to seed at. But unfortunately, we had a bunch of hail come through and pretty much took all of our intercrop fields down. So we really don't know what the best rate is. Looking at the stand when it was standing, I would say the 4 and the 1.5 probably would have been the best rate that would have had the best outcome, I guess.
That's 4 peas, 1.5
4
oats.
bushels peas and 1.5 bushels oats.
Nice. For Sean, I'll go back and forth between both. I'll make it easy. So for Sean, did you till the soil at any point for your first study?
Yeah, so that the first study, the paired fields, grassland set aside and annual cropping, those were farmer managed fields. So we basically left it up to the farmer to utilize their typical transition, and all of them would have done multiple passes, mowing followed by tillage.
Okay. And then I'm going to ask this question because this one was on my mind too. This was I quite like this question. So we had something about this last year. Has anyone experimented with any bacterial products to help remediate soil prior to or in combination with grassland set-asides and pollinator strips?
I have not.
Yeah, we haven't used that in particular, but we are trialing right now a seaweed biostimulant following a year of set aside.
Okay. And then Shannon, so there was a couple questions with the weeds with the Canada thistle on here. So on your first image, the 2024, there's quite a bit of thistle in there. Has it gone down with the perennials taking hold, or is it still pretty prevalent?
No, actually, the perennials out-competed the weeds, actually. So the plant stand, I guess, for the perennials was thicker. Therefore, it choked out most of the weeds, and a better ground cover, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. And then Sean, you may have talked about, but this is a question I just was wondering about. So you were talking about compaction. Did you guys notice? I may have missed it. Did you notice any changes in compaction with the soil there, with your grassland set sides?
We have. We did not see statistically significant differences across all of the fields. But we certainly have seen in some situations real substantial differences in bulk density.
Okay. Let's see here. Shannon, do you use any soil amendments to increase nutrient availability to your organic annual crops? If not, do you think that's something you will do in the future?
Well, presently we haven't dabbled in it yet. I've talked to a few of our neighbor farmers that have used it and are pretty pleased with it. Maybe eventually we will, but we haven't got to that point yet. We're still just basically doing the plow downs with our cover crops.
But the interesting part with the plow downs also that we're finding is that Shannon's the farmer that farms with Shannon helps. He's running some land just north of Shannon's organic, and they don't do any cover crops or plow downs. And we're noticing a huge difference in Shannon's numbers, and it's just like a couple miles away from the land that we're renting. So we're seeing the results that whatever we're doing now for our practices of her giving back to the earth is actually working in like much higher bushels per acre in the oats.
You can't just take away from the land. I mean, if you take away from the land, i.e. harvesting, you must give back. So that the way of us giving back is doing the plow downs. Other farmers do the nutrients, but like I said, we haven't got that far yet. So,
Sean, for the second study, why did you decide to study soil type instead of location for your second study?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly sure. The distinction there, but certainly we looked at as much management data as we could for each of those fields. Soil type was something that we're interested in so that we could provide more specific recommendations going forward to be able to say, in this case it works, in this case it doesn't. And knowing that the soil type varies across the region, that was our target.
Yeah. Shannon, have you used anything other than sweet clover or yellow clover as your plow down crops?
Yeah, we have. We have used a pea oat blend. We've used a multi cover crop blend. I think there was, what was in there? Hairy vetch, radish, and buckwheat. We have tried red clover. So I mean, they all do the same job. We're just, sometimes you just don't know which one to pick. That's all, but if you don't have a good catch on your cover crop with our rotation, you have to basically wait your 2 years of crops before you can start putting nutrients back in the ground. So it's very important if you get a good catch. Mother Nature has to kick in with the rain, of course, but so yeah, it's very important to get a good catch and then increase the soil matter in the ground.
Another year too, we had the radishes were out and the flea beetles came in and pretty much destroyed the entire
Yeah, we
crop.
did just radishes themselves one time, and you see them late in August, and we found that all the clover fields around were already maturing. So as soon as the radishes came up, the flea beetles came in and just ate everything. So that was a epic fail on that part. So
That happens. Sean, was there any cows or domesticated ungulates used for grazing pressure?
Not in the fields that we looked at, but there are certainly producers in the region that are using grazing. It's an interesting alternative to the grassland set aside. We've been working with producers in one particular part of the region that have a 3-year forage rotation with their annual vegetables. And some of those producers are bringing in cows to do some grazing on those fields. And those fields are doing really well. But that 3 years of forage is it's a tricky one with the birds. The migrating waterfowl come in and they can completely wipe out a forage field.
Yeah.
So we're seeing some hesitation to using forage in the rotation.
Yeah. Shannon, so are pollinator strips only being used with annual crops? Would there be a concern with pollinator strip plants becoming weeds if planted along a field of perennials, i.e. hay?
where's that?
We're not sure we get that question. Looking for it now.
John's just looking for the question.
Oh, that's all good. It's at 11:54.
11:54.
This is only the federal comment.
Well, we have our pollinator strips only being used with an annual crop.
Yeah.
Would there be a concern with pollinator strips plants becoming weeds if plants along a field of perennials?
Yeah.
John, can you answer that?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, there would be somewhat of a concern. You'd hope that plowing it down would get rid of that perennial, but I mean, you know what we're going to find out? Because this spring we're plowing down that our very first pollinator strip. So have us back in a year and we'll let you know.
I think there wouldn't be many volunteer when Regan was doing her study to see if there was any of the annuals that came up with the perennials. She didn't find many because all the birds and everything else ate the seeds. So I don't think that would be an issue.
I mean, it will be interesting to see that. So that's a really good question, by the way, because we're gonna look for it and pay attention. because it's also extremely windy too, right? So if those seeds could get away, they would get away in Saskatchewan, right? Like they could be anywhere. So we'll be looking at that quite closely in that field that we tried to. And that answer might be what maybe slows us down from trying to do pollinator strips instead of our flower strip.
Yeah. Interesting. I saw Sean, how did the land trust come up with the rate they would pay farmers for adopting those grassland set-asides?
Yeah. So yeah, Dr. Art Bomke has worked with. He's a UBC faculty member, retired now, who spent many years trying to hone that mix. There's been additional work since Art. So some of my colleagues now are working on the pollinator mix and trying to do some of the same kind of work that is happening on Shannon's farm, looking at the prevalence of pollinators in these different mixes. But the important point is that while this is a recommended mix, the farmers can still utilize their own selection to participate in the program. So I think that's really important to share. So some of the farmers are doing some pretty wildly different mixes. Yeah, including tillage radish is one of my favorite out there. There's another guy. Actually, no, the guy who's doing tillage radish is also doing a lot more sunflower. So he's got this really interesting mix out there with this massive sunflowers. And then I think he had to stop doing the tillage radish because the neighbors were complaining about the smell in the spring.
Oh, that's funny. The question for you, Sean, too. When did this program start? I was just wondering. You mentioned that some farmers, there's some that just do it for one season. Have there been any that they start it, go back to seeding crops, and then come back with that grassland set aside?
Yeah, so I don't know if you remember that I showed a heat map, sort of the history of 19.
Oh yeah.
That was basically the colors were indicating the farms that have implemented the GLSA, the grassland set aside, and then there would be a number of years of gaps. So over the course of those 20 years, we did see several grassland set asides come and go.
Come back, yeah. Okay, yeah, I remember that was the purple and orange.
Exactly.
Yeah. Shannon, did you try different seeding rates for your pollinator cocktail, or have you figured out a set rate for underseeding your intercropping?
We just, for the pollinator strip, that was the suggested rate for us, was 22 pounds an acre. So basically that's what we went with. For the P&O intercrop, is that you're asking about the rate about that?
No, I think just pollinator strip.
Oh, just the pollinator strip? We just kind of went with what what the suggested rate was. So.
I'd like to jump on what Sean said earlier too. It's like every farmer's going to try something different. I think if we start doing the pollinator strips, we're going to play with that mix a little bit, and maybe like add your favorites or add something that you think did better in each section, each group. And I know that Once Upon a Farm and Avena are also very curious to see some of this stuff. So I'm expecting to see some changes happening.
Yeah. Here's a really good question. And I know it's research that's been done here in Alberta with the edge effect. So for Shannon, was there any measure of the edge effect? So did the pollinator strip affect adjacent crop positive or negative?
I think it's a positive thing.
It's not like we have an alfalfa crop or some crop that would require that help with the pollination. I think that's what you're going for. Like we don't have that crop that really benefits a lot from pollination or from that kind of happening. So I wish we had a neighbor that maybe would have had a crop that could have used that. Then we could have seen if he saw a little bit of a help or not.
What about because I saw the height of that pollinator strip. What about moisture moisture along that edge? I would assume there'd be a lot more snow capture. Did you see huge benefit?
Yes, there is actually with the high stand, in the pollinator strip. Like I just drove by it the other day, and there's quite a bit of snow that's in there, so it does benefit as a snow catch.
Mhm.
So the moisture should be higher technically in the pollinator strip.
And we'll have those results and pictures of that too once it comes through. We're hoping for a little bit more snow to come this way, and then get that picture, and then we'll do the testing in the spring.
Yeah.
Matt, can I ask a question? Shannon, you showed a picture. One of the pictures you showed had a patch in the non-pollinator strip area, so the production area, that was obviously struggling. Like there was a big sort of bare patch in the photo, and I was wondering how prevalent that. Well, what was causing that, and is that prevalent in some of your other fields? And would that be?
Yeah, well, that picture would have been the spring of 2024. So those would have been the annuals that were coming up. I felt that the annuals weren't as thick, or didn't that was in the spring. So I mean, maybe some of them hadn't come out of the ground yet. I don't know, but yeah, I think that was just an early picture representing the annuals that are coming out of the ground. So,
And we didn't get those results in, or knowing when they were doing them. I think if we would have saw some of those, like we got it when it was all done, I think if we would have saw it earlier, we'd have probably went and looked at that stuff and have a better answer, and maybe look for ourselves going, what's going on here? But we know we don't have that back, and we didn't know when they were looking and what they were doing. We're going by, well, this is what I think when I drove by.
Right. Yeah, I'm just wondering if there aren't places in the field that you could target for patches of pollinator strip.
yeah, I think there's been people have put them around a dugout, or a saline patch in their field, just to try and help rejuvenate that soil health.
Right.
Especially those saline patches. I mean, like that, we have it's quite abundant in our home quarters here, the 2 quarters here. There's 2 here, like 24 that are a little bit further east. And we're looking at that too, and maybe like throwing an alfalfa blend or something with a deeper root system to maybe absorb some of that salt and help our 2 quarters that here at home. But again, we're going to see if I can get that done or not.
I was curious. Yeah, I know like in Alberta, well, probably in Saskatchewan too, like Ducks Unlimited, they have funding for mixed pollinator or native corner, putting pivot corners back to native plant species, or pollinator strips, or even under the SCAT program, there's stuff there too. So we have a couple of questions left here. We'll answer 2 or 3 more, and then we'll close it off for everyone, because I know there's gonna be a few that want that those CU credits. So Shannon, is the quicker infiltration, the 6-minute compared to 10-minute for other crop, a benefit? Yeah. So they're just wondering, if that quicker infiltration is a benefit.
Yeah, I think that the quicker the filtration is, if you have a heavy rain, and we do get some downpours, it's evident that in the pollinator strip, all of that water would have soaked in quicker than the peeled intercrop or the yellow clover.
And the chance of it going further, right? The deeper that rain will go, the more that root will go look for it. So then it has a better chance when it's during the drier seasons that it might have a longer taproot to go get that nutrients it needs. So we always think that's the best way to go, right?
And then for both, I saw this. Here's one. What does anyone think of just letting weeds grow and then plowing them in before they go to seed?
Is that us or Sean?
I think that's for both.
We'll go first. Shannon?
Well,
when you do it, I'll let you talk about, I know that there's someone talking about the thistle too. Like we have some bad thistle patches in some of our fields. And I'll let Shannon take over.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, I mean, there's going to be weeds growing with our cover crops. So I think anything that is green when you plowed in is going to give the soil some nutrients. So,
But
you know, we have wild oats, we've got Canada thistle,
that-
weed is another. So if you catch it before it goes to seed, I think it's a benefit.
And that's we'll put both some of our. Sometimes it's the timing, the tilling, and the work that gets done will be based on those plants and when they're going to go to seed. We'll try to get them before they go to seed if we can. And often we'll do the plow down with seeding at the same time to hopefully get those again at that time.
We usually do our plow downs mid-July, I guess, you know, when the plants are flowering. And then of course then you catch them before they do go to seed. So
Yeah, I guess I would just add to that. I'd worry about not being able to time it well. You know, this year we're having an incredibly warm winter, and the weeds are loving it. They're just taking off. And so, you know, while you might anticipate that you can get out there before it goes to seed, I think there might be some real nasty ones that get going before you can get out there or you want to get out there.
Yeah. No, that's right. Let's see here. Oh, and then here, we'll end up with this question here. So, Shannon, how long are you planning to leave the pollinator strip in before reworking or reseeding?
yeah, so 2024 would have been the annuals, and the spring of 2025 would have then been the perennials. So in the spring of 2026, we were able to terminate that whole pollinator strip.
So the short answer is 2 years.
Yeah, short answer, it's a 2-year project.
Awesome. Okay, and then there are a couple. There's I know for Shannon, Maria left you guys a question in there. I'll let you. She was asking about the Once Upon a Farm there. So I'll let you answer her there, and then I'll just answer some of these live so that people can see them. There's a few folks here that left some links for some of the answers that were, or some of the questions that were answered. So if anybody's looking for some more information, then you can find those there too. So let's see here. Okay, so I'd like to extend my thanks to everyone who joined us today, and a special thank you to Shannon and Sean for their informative presentations. They were really good, and you know they really went well hand in hand, kind of thing. So I really appreciate both of you guys taking the time out of your days to come and present to the folks here that attend the workshop. So please join us again next Monday, February 2nd at 11 o'clock a.m. Edmonton time. For our next session featuring presentations focused on invasive weed management. So enjoy the rest of your Monday, everybody.